Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Greg Smith. Greg, excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Gresh. Appreciate it being here.
Yes, appreciate you. And I appreciate all the awesome things that you're doing. And of course, before we jumped into the conversation, I want to read a little bit more about Greg so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Greg is the founder and CEO of Thinkific, the leading platform for creating, marketing, and selling digital learning experiences. Greg is passionate about helping entrepreneurs create or grow a business around their own passion, knowledge, or skills. Prior to launching Thinkific, Greg was a corporate lawyer for one of the largest law firms in the country. And during this time, he launched an online course as a side project, which allowed him to share his passion and expertise with thousands around the world. Revenues from his course soon surpassed his salary as a lawyer. And since then, Greg and his team at Thinkific have grown to power the courses, membership, and communities for over 50,000 entrepreneurs and businesses in 190 countries, which have taught millions of students and helped businesses educate their customers. And one of the things I loved hearing when I was preparing for this is that when he's not empowering entrepreneurs, Greg can be found kiteboarding, sitting around a campfire, playing board games, and spending time with his wife, daughter, and his son. And I really enjoyed listening to his journey of Thinkific and all the awesome things he's been able to do. But I think what really stuck with me is he said that he tries to help people's dreams come true. Greg, excited to have you on the show. You ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's get it started then. I know I alluded to it a little bit, so let's rewind the clock, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Yeah, I guess going back way before we started Thinkific, which was about 2012, this would be way earlier, 2005. I was going to law school. I was trying to pay off my pretty significant student loan debts. And so I started teaching and tutoring in person and, couldn't usually put enough people in a classroom or a tutoring session to make it all work. And so started trying to bring it online, mostly so I could help more people build a bigger business doing it. And we went looking for a solution, kind of like what we were looking for what we have with Thinkific today, which would be, my content at the time, my courses all on my own site under my brand with the ability to market and sell it and build a business around it. Couldn't find another software solution out there that did that. And so we mashed together some custom code and a few different products to make something work. And that kind of, we jumbled it together for a while, and it worked well enough to go and deliver and start to build a business around it. But then people started reaching out saying, we want to do exactly what you've done. We've got our content. We want to produce courses or other digital products. We want to put it on our site, and we want to sell it and monetize that knowledge to our audience. And so that's when we started building Thinkific to meet those needs exactly, and the same ones that I had started out.
Nice. I absolutely love that. So many times you hear it kind of scratch your own itch and it provides a really great opportunity. Sounds like you had that experience where you were able to kind of, have that, side hustle that ended up becoming a really phenomenal company that you guys been able to impact so many people.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be a blessing and a curse in that your customer so well because you are them, but then you have to sort of like at some point separate yourself from it and say, okay, I'm not the only customer. You got to learn from others here the whole way through.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny when I was listening to one of your interviews, I think you said when you reach product market fit, you actually did snow angels in the room because you were so excited. But I imagine that is not an easy journey of like saying, okay, I created something for myself. Now let me expand that to be able to make even more of an impact for so many other people.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy moment going from sort of funding payroll on my credit card and not sure if we were going to make it from one week to the next. And then suddenly things started to work and, people are grateful for what we're building and we're starting to see their businesses succeed on our platform. And that was a big moment. There was no snow, but I did try and make snow angels on the floor.
That's probably just as impactful, which is pretty cool. I'm curious, like how long, I don't know if you have like a period of time that it took for you to get from that journey. Because I think so many times when they say the secret to the overnight success is it takes 10 or 15 years, you don't always hear about those behind the scenes of what that looks like from you launching to you doing the snow angels and kind of everything in between from there.
Yeah, it was about 3 years from starting. Well, so there was my own course, which was from there, that was like 7 years before we started Thinkific and I quit my job and started doing that. Then it was 3 years from there to have Thinkific start to generate revenue really. And then from there, it was maybe another 7 years to like IPO when, that's that overnight success moment where friends from high school message you and they're like, hey, congrats.
Yeah, you absolutely got to love it. and to be able to kind of do that and see that journey. But I appreciate you sharing that kind of behind the scenes, because I think so many times you don't see, they see the IPO and you're like, oh, it's easy. I could just kind of have this idea and bring it to fruition, and that's all that happens.
Yeah, yeah, it's but I mean, you have so much fun on the journey too, right? It's not usually about those moments that others see. It's really about
Mhm.
all the fun you have doing the work on the way there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know one of the most enjoyable things you get to do is probably to help to serve the clients and make that impact. Could you take us through a little bit more on how you're doing that and how you're making that impact for the clients you work with?
Yeah, the biggest thing, and I like the helping people's dreams come true. I say for me is like if you ask five whys, like, well, why do you do what you do? But why? But why? But why? But why? Get to the core is like I just like, and I think so many people at Thinkific we like making people's dreams come true. So for me, that comes down to the team, right? So how do we help them achieve their career dreams? Our customers, how do we help them go and take their knowledge and passion, share it with the world, and build a business around doing it? So really, that comes down to making sure they can get really good quality digital products, courses, memberships out into the world, and have an impact with it and share what they're really passionate about, but that they actually make enough money to make that sustainable and grow, and in many cases become highly successful. And then even the people they're teaching and sharing their knowledge with, how do we help those people by building great learning products so they can learn and change lives? So it's really cool because while we have tens of thousands of customers, in each one of those there's like thousands of stories of the people they've helped. So you get this really cool exponential impact, which is just what, for me, what gets me up in the morning and excited about what we do.
Yeah, I could definitely visualize kind of like that rock that you put in, and you don't realize that it reverberates in so many different ways. And as you are empowering people to build those communities and impact those communities, it starts to, imagine, of course, be able to share that expertise. But I say often we forget about the human part of business and the human part of life. And I feel like you have been able to kind of help to amplify that in so many ways for different people.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's true for so many people listening in their own businesses. Like, if you're helping a parent being a better parent, you get obviously impact on their family, on the kids, but then also, they often share that with their friends, and so it could impact the whole community in positive ways. So sometimes early on, you only have a few clients, and you're thinking, oh, it's a small business,
Mhm.
but the impact can still be actually quite significant.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Do you feel like in the early days that you had that vision when you had that? I think it was the LSAT course that you started out with. Do you feel like those things helped you to kind of transition to everything you've been able to do now over time?
Definitely didn't see. I think the furthest I was able to see ahead was usually about 6 months until more recently, when really my teams forced me to step up over the last few years and kind of look a lot further out in the future. But I find it challenging enough to look 6 months out, let alone the 3 to 5 years or 10 years that sometimes people ask you to. So I wish I could say, oh, I had the vision from the start, but no, I was just like head to the grindstone, really looking at the road right in front of me and what comes next and how we can make it work.
Yeah, I think that I appreciate you sharing that, because I think so many times we can have those visions, and not to say those visions are wrong or anything, but a lot of times, especially I imagine in those early days, a lot of it was around execution, getting those things done, and making sure that you get to that next step and that step after that. And I imagine there was a lot of pivots and changes and things that happen as a result of you going on that journey.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And even visions or ideas or missions along the way where we realize some cases we even got what I'd call like a false positive, where there was some positive feedback that we were on the right path. And then you go a little further and you realize, like, yeah, we could keep going this way, but it's gonna take too long. I'm not passionate about it. The clients don't care enough about it. And so really kind of circling back and saying, what am I super passionate about? What's actually going to build a business that makes money? Because that is essential. And what can I be really good at, or us as a company? And sometimes you get one or two of those sending you down the wrong path for a while. So that was something that certainly slowed me down for the first few years.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think so many times we're looking for those positives, but again, it might not be in alignment with that filter, I guess we set, and determine ultimately where we want to be and how we want to make that impact. So it's so important to kind of continue to kind of check that, but realize that that's sometimes the path we go down to get to where we want to be.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, for people that want to, set up the courses and things, could you take us through like what that looks like? What are those steps? If somebody has this passion thing that they're really great at, how do they go about, using Thinkific and making that impact?
Yeah, and I see people come at it from a few angles. Some they're already they have this expertise, passion, They're already sharing it with others. That could be the coach, trainer, author, expert, yoga instructor. They're already kind of teaching others in some form, and they're looking to kind of digitize it, bring it online. And then more and more, there's another group too that is building an audience first. And so they've got to some level of fans or followers on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. And they're saying, what do I do now? I'm passionate about something. I'm starting to share it with others, but I haven't monetized it yet. And so what we really do is in both these cases, that's where we can step in and say, we can help you get this to the next level and actually monetize it. And so sometimes, usually it's starting with a smaller digital product. So that could be download, coaching sessions, booking some time. Some people are already there, and then they're going to the next level of building a community or something even bigger as a course. And from there, basically, these are all just in different forms of digital products. The reason I love the digital product concept is one, you're building a business, selling something. You add value in other people's lives, so you're creating this positive impact, but you're not using jet fuel to ship plastic around the world, and
Mhm.
you're also, your margins because of that are much higher, right? Like your you don't have things like returns. You don't have the cost of some t-shirt that you're going to have to go and sell. And so once you've created this digital product, you can sell it 100 times or 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times. And, each incremental sale is additional profit and additional impact that you're having in the world. So I just love the business model. And for so many people, it can be really lucrative, especially when you compare it to, say, something like ad revenue. You look at someone on YouTube, and typically you would do a $5 to $8 RPM, or revenue per thousand views. If you're lucky enough to get like a brand sponsor you, let's say Nike puts their shoes in your videos, maybe you make $50 RPM. But with digital products, I often see people doing $1,000, $2,000 RPM, revenue per thousand views. So it's and the profit on it is so much higher. So it's often just about showing people what kind of an opportunity, and then it's a real eye-opening moment of the kind of business they can build.
Yeah, I love that phrase, showing people, that opportunity, because I think so many times we can get siloed in how we're looking at building a business or what that looks like. And I think with all these, technology, digital tools that we have out there, sometimes for one, we have different avenue and platform and opportunities to be able to do that. But I think too, and I imagine you probably have seen that or have those conversations where people do maybe have something that they should share or they could share and don't even realize that that could be something that could make that impact that they're ultimately seeking in other people's lives.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times it takes a little bit of work to even see what that is. And, some of the ways is just thinking about, what are people asking you about, right? What are they asking for your help? What are you good at helping people with?
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of work backwards from there. So, would you consider that to be part of what I like to call your secret sauce? It could be for yourself individually, the business, or a combination of both. But do you think that it's that ability to, of course, be able to see the forest for the trees, but also it sounds like you're really dialed into that human part of business that we can sometimes gloss over in life and realize like how that impact is truly being made.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. And then we go a bit further with the software in terms of how do we really differentiate. And so for us, usually it's about working with people where they care really deeply about the product they're creating. Look, when you get into the world of
Mhm.
internet marketing, especially for digital products, there are those that are just, I don't care so much about the impact. I want to make a dollar, right?
Mhm.
And we all need to generate revenue from what we're doing so that we can make a living and continue doing it. So all about that. That's sort of table stakes, but we go a step further, and it's really about making sure that your products that you're selling deliver value, that you can sort of fulfill that vision you have for that digital product or that course or that community you're building. And so we tend to attract a different type of people who are, you deeply invested in the product they're delivering. They care about the quality of what they're creating. I find that makes for a much more sustainable long-term business for them, which in turn works really well for us. So a lot of what we're focused on is aligning our success with that of our customers, right? If they succeed, we succeed. Just find one of our differentiators being about that. Another one, like honestly, differentiation for us you could go into dozens of things, but another one would just be, we work really well at scale. So it's easy to start, but we really focus on making sure that you can also scale to any level. So we have people who are generating tens of millions in revenue or have millions of students on the platform, and it can still support you. So it's not like you start with
Mhm.
something and it breaks at some size for you.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that because when I was listening to your interview, I think that was one of the things you were considering in the very beginning when you were kind of I won't say duct tape, but that's what's coming to mind, duct tape all the different tools in place to be able to get to where you are now. Now you have that platform where not only does it help you all to scale to be able to have more teachers and educators, but also those people that are trying to make that impact also don't have to worry about getting the duct tape out to make that happen.
Yeah, there was definitely some digital duct tape in those early days.
Yes, absolutely. But I really love that part where to me, it speaks directly to like an abundant mentality. I think so many times we could think either or, either you win or I win, but you
Mm.
being able to be in lockstep with the clients that you're serving to be able to say, not only are we trying to help you win, we also win by helping you win. And I think that's a really powerful place to be.
Yeah, I think it's something that can be incorporated into pretty much any business model, and it certainly makes a much healthier, long term, more sustainable one. Right, that customer focus, they do well, you do well. If
Mm.
it's a trade off of one or the other, that often turns into a bit of a struggle, and sometimes you end up making choices or forced into choices that aren't great for one of those two parties, and that's a tough place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just kind of like reinventing, like I talked about, like not even realize you could do that with digital projects and be able to generate a revenue, generate opportunity the same way. You don't have to choose either or. You can choose both and better and be able to kind of lean into that and make that happen.
Mhm.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or even a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more
Yeah.
effective and efficient?
Yeah, I mean, look, on the book side, I think I'll share a couple. And the reason I share these, one, they've been instrumental in helping me build sort of business and strategy. And two, if you're like me, you probably have more books on your bookshelf that someone told you to get and you ordered on and then put on the bookshelf and haven't had a chance to get to. So I definitely do that. I think I ordered another one last night. We'll see if I actually get into it. But these are both things that you can read in an hour or two. So the
Okay.
first one is Turning the Flywheel by Jim Collins. It's
Mm,
tiny. It's about 56 pages, but it's a small book too. So even those 56 pages are short. And
mm.
the other one is What is Strategy by Joan McGreta, and that one is actually a picture book. When I first brought it home, my son brought it to daycare because he wanted to show all of his friends the pictures of animals in it. So
Love
both
it.
of them can be read in an hour or two, but they have such powerful concepts. I mean, that concept I shared, which is the hedgehog concept of like, what are you good at, passionate about, and can be the best in the world at? That's from the Turning the Flywheel. It also gets into like, looks at Amazon's flywheel and how they built it. And then What is Strategy is just a beautiful, I've looked at so many studies of strategy and I find it to be a really dense, difficult topic to wrap my head around. And this was one that really stood out for me as really simplifying it, but in a powerful way that works.
Yeah, and I almost feel like part of being able to simplify those things is a sign of excellence, of a sign of really knowing your stuff and be able to do that. I think so many times we think those dense, kind of thousands and thousands of pages, tomes of books actually are what we're looking for, when in reality, having that quote unquote simple but really impactful book, podcast, whatever it might be, is actually a lot more impactful than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I certainly found it that way.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, what would you consider to be a little bit more of what I like to call a CEO nugget? This could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. I like to say it might be something you would tell your favorite client, or if you happen to do a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Yeah, let's see. I think CEO specifically, or founder, or entrepreneur, or really a lot of leaders. I think equanimity, and that the concept there. I had to look it up when I first saw it. I think it was who was it? Oh, I saw someone I love online mention it, and I looked it up. But it was just this concept of basically, staying calm and responding well under difficult situations. I'm probably getting the definition slightly wrong, but I've been working on it a lot. I find that the better you get at it, the more you can maintain that level head when things get difficult or tough or you're under attack or otherwise. You make a lot less mistakes. You can make better decisions. You can be kind of your best self in the right scenarios when it's most important. Set a good example for your team or your customers. So, equanimity is kind of a hack I guess I use to and we're never going to be perfect at it, right? But the closer you get to it, so things like meditation help in getting there, but just being conscious of it and how powerful it can be, and then noticing when you do apply it, how well it can work is pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I never heard of the word. I was going to actually ask you how to spell it because I had no idea. But we'll figure it out for the show notes. But with equanimity, I think I was thinking a lot of like athletes, and especially around sports, where you see like they kind of practice, before the event actually happens. Is that a lot of like what happens to be able to get in that calm, peaceful state where you can make the best decisions that you have to practice that?
Yeah, and I think at least and I think a lot of people have a tendency when you're going into a stressful situation or conversation, you might play it over in your head, but
Mhm.
sometimes we play it over in like an aggressive way, like, oh, when they say this, I'm going to say this,
Mm.
right? I know I've done that. This is almost like one way to prep for it is to do the opposite, right? Like, okay, so they're going to say this, and I'm just going to remain calm and say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. How do you feel about that, right? And so it's almost like training yourself to respond in the way you want to. Yeah, you can do that prep. Similar, you're right, to the athlete who's like, okay, I'm going to be running the race. I know that one of my competitors is a little faster than me at the beginning, but I beat them in the long run. So when they pass me, I'm not going to get frustrated. I'm going to play my game, stick with my strategy, and I know I'll win in the end. Like that kind of thing can bring out the best of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you end up, I guess, taking action from a position more of, I don't know if power is the right word, but maybe control or awareness of like what's happening. Because, yeah, like you said, I find myself kind of doing the same thing to some degrees. When you know you're having a difficult conversation, you're trying to stop from having those blow ups or those things that happen. And it kind of sometimes can get you off of your game, off of who you are, and ultimately where you want to be and the impact you want to have.
Yeah, and I think especially on the CEO front or the founder entrepreneur front, it's control in the sense of self control, as opposed to what I think a lot of us tend to lean towards, which is I want control over the situation. For
Mhm.
me, when I'm at my worst on this stuff is when I'm trying to control the situation and control others and control what's going on. When I'm at my best, it's the self-control, right? And then
Yeah.
you end up ironically having more control over the situation when you have that self-control, and you're more likely to get to the optimal outcome, which might not be what you wanted to come in and make happen, but it might be the best result for everyone.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really powerful point as well too, is because I think so many times we want that control over situations largely because we want this outcome to happen. And in reality, if we have a little bit more of controlling what we can control, which a lot of times is ourselves more than anything else, that allows us to get to ultimately what that outcome would be. And it may not be exactly what we envision, but at the end of the day, it might be what's best for ourselves, the company, the person, all the people that might be involved.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a big difference when you have that. Helpful in
Absolutely.
personal life too, for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Like I said, we forget about that human part, and we don't realize like how those same emotions, those same feelings can, they aren't in silos. They happen in professional, they happen in personal life and relationships, all those things. So by practicing that, those things are kind of spreading and supporting all the different aspects of who we are.
Yeah, I got to be careful sometimes not to take too much of that work principle home, but there's a lot of it that works well at home.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
What would you consider to be your answer to my absolute favorite question, was the definition of what it means to be a CEO? And our goal is to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, Greg, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Yeah, I think there's so many pieces to this. In its simplest form, I'd say you have to be constantly evolving, learning, and growing, and then and evolving in kind of response to your team, customer, and organization. So for me, being in a high growth organization where the team size can change exponentially, the customer base, the revenue, the growth can be exponential. That required kind of exponential learning on my part to constantly be learning, taking courses, reading, leveling up my game to address the latest challenge. But I think every CEO's journey is a bit different. But one central theme to that is just being able to evolve in response to what's going on around you in your organization and what it needs from you, as opposed to really trying to force everything to fit what you currently are, right? Another way to look at it, I think, I've heard this said, if you're in an organization that's doubling every year, as a lot of fast growth ones are, then an individual in a team role anywhere in the organization probably needs to double just to stay where they're at, just to kind of keep up with what's going
Mhm.
on. And so as and that, within the team, that tends to kind of adjust naturally, but in the CEO role, you really need to kind of own that journey. Lots of other things, but that's probably the core to it. And the biggest tool for that for me is just being open to feedback. And I think making sure that the people around you, especially the ones that work for you, are able to and willing to and comfortable giving you feedback, and you respond well to it, because it's such an exceptional tool. They're the ones who get to see it, and you're blind to it if you don't ask for it. But if you respond poorly to it, then it just stops coming and you've lost this tool you have for growth.
Yeah, and I can imagine that feeds directly into the culture as well too, and being able to kind of, how you react to that is how, other people within leadership are going to be reacting as well too. So, has it been you like kind of having that mirror, for lack of a better term, and being able to kind of say, this is what we need to do, this is how I need to approach being CEO? Has that been one of the best ways to be able to create that culture where, learning, growing, you know, continuing leveling up is part of like that culture?
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it. Certainly for my own personal growth, you realize, and then it sends a message. Whatever you do embody, I think it does send a message out to everyone else who touches your organization or is within it to, that this is part of the culture. You don't become the whole culture, but you do influence it. So yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, the core tenets of culture, at least at Thinkific, is this mix of performance, results, and achievement, and that desire to go and achieve and succeed and drive results with kindness, empathy, respect, just almost like basic decency to people. And
Mhm.
it's really interesting in that even the most difficult situations, like let's say you're having to fire someone, you bring that together of like results and achieving the right outcomes with kindness and decency and respect, and you can do things well.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and I can definitely see that in everything that you're doing, and even things we talked about. That, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna say it right, equanimity, and even that, and being aware of what that is, and trying to incorporate that plays such a big part.
Yeah, yeah. No, you got it.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Just want to be in the right street or in the right city or state or something like that. So there you go. So Greg, truly appreciate that definition. And of course, I appreciate your time even more. So what I wanted to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best people can get hold of you, find out about all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Yeah, I think, look, anyone in this journey, one of the biggest things is just, we've talked about lots of advice, but one big one is just persist and persistence and continue going forward. And that, yeah, their failure is fine. We all fail tons. I certainly have challenges, difficulties, not being um, I don't know what what's
We'll get it together.
adjective there. Um, uh, losing your cool. There you go. These all happen, but you learn and grow. You learn from it. You move on. You persist. It's really, it's when you give up that you don't keep moving forward. And that doesn't mean you always have to be on exactly the same journey. Sometimes it is time to make the decision of like, oh, this isn't the right direction. We're going to give up on that direction, but pick a new one, or a new business or a new way to go. But I think that persistence is just critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people that want to check out Thinkific, what's the best way for them to do that?
Anywhere at Thinkific, Think. So that's think, IFIC.com, or at Thinkific on pretty much any social channel.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And of course, to make it even easier, we'll have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can check it out and follow up and find out about all the awesome things that Greg and the team are working on. But truly appreciate that last point. I think so many times when we figure out what are the ingredients to success, we sometimes forget about that persistent path. We think that I always say like success is a lot more like a plate of spaghetti than that straight path that sometimes we think that it is. So I appreciate that persistence of continue on. Love that you've been able to kind of do that and help empower people in so many different ways. So truly appreciate that. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gresh. I really appreciate it.